Crew, and I'm Director of Admissions at the American Film Institute, and we are a graduate program in filmmaking. And we actually have 6 different disciplines that you can come in on. We have a directing program, we have a producing program, we have a cinematography program, we have a screenwriting program, we have an editing program, and we have a production design program. And it's very much a conservatory approach and a pretty rigorous application process. So I am someone that looks very closely at the work of applicants for AFI and can give some insights into what are some of the things that really stand out and what works in terms of putting your best foot forward for a film program. But at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our other panelists if they want to quickly introduce themselves and maybe start with a film that you just watched or something you just saw that really spoke to you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay. I'm a director based in Los Angeles and Honolulu. So right now I'm in Honolulu, and I just saw The Green Knight, which I thought was super cool. And no one else with me liked it, but I loved it.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll go. Hi, I'm Tiffany. I'm a writer, director, editor, animator based in Los Angeles. Pronouns are she and her. And one thing that I saw recently that I really loved was the series Reservation Dogs on Hulu. It's really, really awesome. I've never seen anything like it.
Pilar?
Hi, I'm Pilar Garcia Fernandez-Esma. I'm a filmmaker and animator based in New York, where I currently am right now. And yesterday, I've been watching a lot of horror films because it's October, and I watched Raw, which I hadn't seen before, and that was super freaky and fun. I really liked the composition of the shots.
Jake?
Hey guys, my name is Jake Golson. I'm based in Brooklyn, and I'm a filmmaker. I make documentaries and shorts, and I also write music. And I actually recently just saw Hateful Eight, which I completely slept on. It was amazing. Not surprised, Tarantino, but a lot of fun.
And because I'm a mom, last night I watched Finding Ohana, which was a film that was written actually here at AFI in one of the classes, and then actually became a film on Netflix. But it was a cute sort of adventure, Goonies meets Hawaii. And that was kind of fun. So I want to maybe kind of go around the room. It's really hard to put yourself out there and kind of curate yourself and present yourself to the world when you have a myriad of maybe different works or what seems to speak to sort of your career goals and the things that you want to do. So if you don't mind, I'd love to go around and hear from you, how you sort of curated your material online. Lindsay, you want to start?
Sure. So I feel like it's important to have your website and Instagram too. And we're always growing and like learning and becoming better filmmakers with every project that we do. So I think it's important to constantly be like checking in and once in a while, like reevaluating how you curate your online presence. And so like sometimes a project we did 4 years ago isn't necessarily representative of what we can do now. And so I think it's more important to have maybe fewer work that is actually representative of your skill level than kind of overly inundating your site or your reel with work that might be a little bit older or something that you're not as proud of now that you've kind of like moved forward as a filmmaker. And so that's something that I do. And are you able to screen share on this presentation thing? Should I do that? All right, let me try. Okay. Share. It's not permitted, so never mind. I won't screen share. But I was going to say when like designing my website too, because I come from a design background, I pay a lot of attention to like the colors and the fonts and the actual layout of the website, because I was thinking that if someone's on my site for 10 seconds and they don't even watch anything, hopefully they get a little bit of a sense of what my work or my vibe is like just from being on the design of the website. And I think something that has been really big for us lately is Instagram. That's kind of a way that a lot of people our age have been networking and finding work through that. And I think it's actually maybe a little bit more effective than a personal website, because once you connect with someone on Instagram and are like mutually following them, then every time you post or they post, they're kind of reminded of what you're up to. And so that's something that I thought has been really interesting and coming up lately.
We have a new speaker that joined us. Do you want to do a quick introduction and a film that you just watched, and tell us a little bit about your online presence as you curate?
Is it me? Am I the new member? Okay, hi, I'm Tracy. I have that other name, Payar. Yeah, you can try that one too if you like. I'm a Chinese writer director. I recently graduated from AFI Conservatory in directing. Actually 2019, but I graduated into the pandemics, so it just felt like it's recent, but it's actually a long time ago now I think of it. Recent movie, I saw, let's see, I'm excited about Bergman Island. I think it just came out, so I'm looking forward to that. I saw Titan. Anybody saw Titan? Yeah, that was the recent Palme d'Or, and it's really amazing. And I wish people can check it out. So about online presence, I actually have a very minimum online presence. I don't even follow that many sites essentially, but like as a filmmaker, you just you do your research and you find out which institutes that are providing support for filmmakers like us, and you follow them to make sure that you can track their deadlines and their new programs and any new opportunities that may come up. Yeah, because I think a lot of these nonprofit organizations, they will share opportunities from around the world. And I think that's really helpful for me. Because I feel like Instagram is like a double-edged like sword. I don't even follow a lot of the film accounts just because I don't want to be influenced too much by just a picture, by just a visual. Even though I know there are a lot of my friends who are really inspired by things that they see online. But personally, I just find it so overwhelming that I just do my research and see which accounts can give me more variety, more inspirations, and more information. So that's how I kind of treat my online presence. Yes.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Anna.
Tiffany, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit about what, your website or the kind of presence that you have online?
Yeah, I think it's really important to think about kind of how like these different platforms function for you. Like for my website, it's definitely more of sort of like almost like a business card. Like I give it to someone and it's like more of like a formal portfolio. I would definitely say for like that stuff, definitely curate it towards the work that you want to get hired for or to like continue making. Just like even if like the stuff that you like do for like a job or something, like that might not be necessarily what you want to do in the future. So kind of just picking and being very selective about like what kind of projects you would like to continue doing in the future. And as far as the website too, I think it's really important to kind of like make it very visual because we are working in a visual medium, especially like for me, like I like both doing like directing or like animation work, like that's always very important to kind of show people like what you're capable of. So it's sometimes nice to even like kind of show like spec projects or things that you enjoy and you would like to make. Yeah, and then I think for Instagram, I really treat it as almost like a like a personal diary. I think it's a lot more informal, and it's really nice to kind of show a lot of like process, like BTS, like sketches, things like that. And definitely like using it to connect with like other artists and stuff. I know especially for fields like animation or like cinematography, like people definitely like get hired like off of their Instagrams. So it's really kind of important to just make sure you like put up work that you like. And yeah, also for Instagram, it's like very easy to kind of like just spiral into this like kind of, I don't know, you just kind of like have an existential crisis of like how people like perceive you and just kind of worrying about that. But I've always sort of had the mentality again of just putting work that I like and not worrying if it like fits a certain aesthetic or grid. And I think that makes it feel a lot more organic and a lot more personal.
Great, thank you. Jake, do you want to jump in? I will add one thing. There is one thing as an admissions person looking at Vimeo links and that people forget to pay their Vimeo account and suddenly it doesn't work anymore or the links don't work anymore. So making sure those kinds of things, it seems kind of like brick and mortar, but you'll be amazed at how many people it sort of lapses and then suddenly we're not able to access their information anymore and you have no idea.
Yeah, definitely make sure the links on your website work. It's a little embarrassing when people can't see your site.
That's right. Thanks, Tiffany. Jake, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I actually made a presentation, but are we not doing presentations or just kind of like more of a, should I try to share here or I don't know.
If you have a presentation you want to do.
Is that all right? I could whip through it kind of fast. I thought we were doing the 10-minute blocks. Open space.
Okay, sure. Absolutely.
Let's see if I can give this thing permission. Oh, it says Google Chrome will not be able to record the contents of your screen until it quits. So I don't think I'm going to be able to share unless I duck out really fast. Maybe come back to me in a moment. Is that all right?
Sure thing.
All right. So
Pilar, do you want to talk a little bit?
Sure. I mean, it's interesting to hear from other people, like the similarities and differences for everyone. I think generally, like most people these days it's between like websites and Instagram, although it always changes, I think, to what like the main art social media place is. Like I know back when I was in high school, Tumblr was a lot bigger for people to put art on the same way that is happening with Instagram now in terms of like finding work, or if you're like a storyboard artist, like presenting it almost as a secondary portfolio, but also as a way to connect with other artists as like a mini networking kind of site in some ways. And it's interesting too that Tiffany talked about her website as like a business card, because I almost feel like my Instagram is the business card and then my website's like sort of more elaborate. Like I use my Instagram more as like a lot more art that I'm doing on a more regular basis, and like snippets of things that I'm working on. And then from there, like, you know, you can click on my links and be like, oh, I'm going to check this out on the website. And then you kind of see like the whole process of how an entire project is done. There's more descriptions of like what the project was, like how I made it. So it's almost like Instagram's little like splash page that I have. And then you kind of dive into like Vimeo or my website and things like that. And I do think it's important that people have been talking about like curating it based on what kind of work you want to do. Like I primarily am a freelancer and a filmmaker, so I have to kind of stay on top of things a lot because I'm like constantly looking for work because I have more short-term types of jobs, you know, a couple months at most, maybe 6 if I'm lucky. So you kind of have to really keep it fresh and like keep updating like your resume, your reel, your website, your Instagram all the time. And for me, like I usually the first page on my website is all like my short films. And then from there, you can go to like different menus. Like I have an illustration section and there I have all these smaller sort of collections of work that are based, instead of doing like individual pieces like some people have on websites, I tend to do like groups of things. So I have like a whole section for storyboards, a whole section for character design, like digital art, things like that. So it's really easy if a recruiter or someone that's like looking to hire me for something is looking for a specific kind of job for me to do, they can just go and be like, oh, here they have a bunch of backgrounds. Like I can see if they would work out for a layout job. So that I like to do it that way. I think it's a lot easier for people sort of to get an idea of like a specific kind of job, but also, you know, if what you're looking to do is more like a storyboard revisionist or an art director eventually, like definitely your first page should be focused on that, not necessarily like your big films, because that's what the people are going to see first. And if that's like your main goal in terms of getting a job, then you should definitely put that in the forefront. But I personally like doing in like little sections like that. And I've honestly, sometimes I put stuff up there as a filmmaker. I do like my whole process. So I put stuff up there that's like processes that you do as an animator and as a filmmaker, just like different things. And I, for example, with layout, like I don't consider myself someone who would do layout, but I've had someone offer me a layout job because I just happen to have like a section on my website with a bunch of backgrounds. So you never know, like if you put the work that you have up there for a project, like someone might just reach out to you for something that you didn't necessarily expect.
That's great feedback. So what do you do if you really want a certain kind of job, but you haven't had a ton of experience in it? How do you curate that and how do you put yourself forward? Tiffany or Lindsay, you guys want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I mentioned it like a little bit earlier, but like I think being able to like make sort of like spec sort of like art or like pieces, like whatever it is that you want to do, like I think is really important, because like if you don't make that work, like how do people know that you're capable of doing it? So like kind of giving people like a taste, like it doesn't even have to be like a whole thing, but something that is like in the style of that, I think can really help a lot.
Yeah, I think Tiffany makes a great point of like spec commercials if you can swing it, because I know it's like a lot of self-financing at the beginning, or like applying to grants, make things with your friends, just like make things that feel authentic to you, because it would be great if everything we worked on was something we were super stoked and passionate about, but sometimes you have to do it for the paycheck, which is also good. But I think especially in the commercial world, agencies love to pigeonhole directors because it's less of a risk for them. Like if you're getting paid a lot to do like tabletop hand commercials, which I think is cool, but let's say you're not passionate about that and you really want to do like action sport, like Nike, Adidas type commercials, and you have like 10 tabletop commercials on your reel and 2 Adidas type commercials, maybe don't put all 10 on there because they're gonna once again like dilute what you want to be known for.
That's great feedback, and I would concur that less is more, and what you have up there, let it be something that really speaks to your abilities and I think your desires in terms of moving forward. Jake, have you been able to figure it out?
No, it's whatever. But yeah, I think I could just kind of wing it. I mean, I think so. I make a lot of commercials, and I went through. I've made like 70 projects in the past 10 years, and I think 10 of them are up on my Vimeo, and like 14 are on a private Dropbox that I send to clients and agencies, and then like 7 films are on my website. And so it's like an insane amount of work that just isn't seen anymore. So I think for me, it's about curating. I ask myself like 3 questions in the beginning of like the process of curating, which is like, who's looking, how can I be different, and what is the energy that this thing is giving off. And I use different platforms to curate for different audiences. So I have like a Dropbox that I have private spots on. So a lot of the commercial work that I do, I'll never post because it's just not representative of the kind of work that I want to make in the future. And I think work, like releasing certain work, breeds more of that work. So if you're posting a lot of pharmaceutical ads or, you know, wedding videography, it's just going to, people are going to hit you up for that stuff, and it's going to breed more work like that. So I'm very, very precise and careful about the stuff that I release online. But at the same time, though, I think like in the beginning, it's so important to just like release, to share everything that you make. And when I was first starting out making films, I would just post everything to Vimeo and to YouTube. And it's one of those, I mean, we live in a great time where you get like instant feedback on everything that you make. And it's part of the process of like learning. And I kind of regret a lot of the projects that I haven't posted over the years. And I just actually, this like one little film called Please and Thank You, I was on the fence about posting it. This was maybe 2 years ago, or I shot it in 2018, and I wasn't really happy with the way that it turned out. And I was like, should I post it on Vimeo? You know, it's done like the festival circuit and whatever, but I don't think it's really representative of the kind of stuff I want to make in the future. But I was like, you know, screw it. I'm just going to post it online. The story is important to me. It was about this single mother raising her son in the Bronx. And it ended up getting staff picked, and a lot of people saw the film. It went to even more festivals, and it was completely worth, you know, releasing this thing out into the world. And I think that's one of the more difficult parts for people like me who can over curate myself and my brand or whatever, is that if you don't post a project online, it's not really alive in the same way that it could be if, you know, if it's just sitting on a hard drive. And also the lessons sink in a lot deeper if it exists out into the world, or if you watch it in a theater with people. I think the lessons that you learn from watching that film surrounded by 100 people will like be much more deeply entrenched than the lessons that you might learn if you decide, oh, you know what, I'm just not going to submit this film to any festivals, or I'm not going to post it anywhere, and it's just going to sit on a drive. So that's my main thing, is like, you know, you could curate yourself and you could be very kind of controlled about certain clients or people that see you, and you could have separate accounts for like music videos or monikers. Like a lot of directors have monikers, which is kind of a cool thing. You could become like an alter ego for the commercials that you make or the music videos that you make. But I also think in the beginning stages, it's super important to post and to share your work, so then you can learn and figure out like, okay, what is actually, you know, what am I responding to, and what are other people responding to? And obviously not letting other people dictate, other people's opinion dictate the direction that you go in. But I do think it's an important part of the process.
So that's so interesting. Thanks for sharing that. That's that dichotomy of how much do you curate and how much do you show and learn and grow, but then how do you protect yourself in that process? I think Tracy kind of spoke a little bit to that. I don't know if you want to jump in, of like also kind of protecting your emotional journey and having people respond, I think, to the work. How much do you put out there? Tracy, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, actually, the point that Jake made. And I'm trying to see if there's like a personal example. Like, I think for just taking out kind of the commercial and music video space, and then speaking from a pure like narrative point of view, and you're just thinking how to be better as an artist. Like I think actually there's so many different like ways of kind of treating feedbacks. I think I have friends who actually don't actively seek out feedbacks, don't even send it out to friends. Like, but they're a great artist. And a lot of the introspection was kind of done through their own analysis of their films. And of course, they send out to festivals and other channels to get noticed. I feel like I'm kind of getting distracted into like just thinking how to get feedbacks and how to improve as an artist. I actually get back to me on that. I think
no worries at all.
Yeah.
Does anybody else want to jump in and talk a little bit about, I like this discussion about how much do you curate and how much do you put out there, especially when these are young artists, right? And I think Jake made it a great point that maybe err on the side of sharing a lot to grow and continue to kind of network. And I think networking is a key piece of this, right? We use these platforms to network and create opportunities, not only for work, but also that creative tribe that you're trying to create, and that networking piece. Anyone want to jump in about sort of the networking and then maybe some other social media platforms or other platforms that maybe people aren't aware that have been helpful to you?
Yeah, I think like the creating community is like such an important part. Like I'm always like gassing up my friends like on Instagram. I'm always like reposting people's work on my story that I really resonate with. And I think it's just like when it comes out of like a very genuine place, it's really nice because it's like you can really like kind of build stronger connections like with people or like with people's work you admire. Like it's just so easy to like DM someone, be like, hey, like I loved your work. That's really awesome. So I think kind of like letting go of the fear of like how other people perceive you instead taking more agency into like the way that you use social media is really nice. I used to kind of like be on that side of like, oh, like how are other people gonna like see my work and like am I a good artist, like stuff like that. But I think once I stopped worrying so much about that, instead like kind of just posting things that like either I really enjoyed that I make or like things that I like that other people made. I think it becomes a lot more fun to use the platform. I would say also like as far as like other social media outside of Instagram, I think Twitter is like really good because it's like kind of similar where like you can really see it's like a feed of just like a lot of different things. I still think like Instagram is still at the top just because of like how visual it is and like being that we are in a visual medium. But I think Twitter is really cool as well because you can kind of have more direct conversations with like artists you admire and discover more stuff.
Yeah, this might sound a little crazy, but if you have animation films, you should put them on Newgrounds. There's this like crazy giant community on Newgrounds of people who like short films and like short animation in particular. It's like all these like nerdy kids that if anyone like watch stuff on YouTube, like all those YouTube poops and things like that, there's like a very similar vibe going on Newgrounds for some reason still. And like I thought a couple of people that I know who are short filmmakers were putting stuff on Newgrounds, and I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I should try it out. But my films tend to be a lot more serious, so I was worried. I was like, well, maybe I'll put this up and it's like too like fancy or like film festival-y for Newgrounds. But it actually got like a really good reception, surprisingly. I think they just like really like watching animation there. There's like a big community of like freelancers and people who are like making side projects. And I got like a bunch of random messages about like if I wanted to work on like this random commercial or like some like side project that they're doing, like one of those where you like recreate a movie in like different scenes. So it's really interesting to see like some different like niche websites and like what's going on over there, because I feel like sometimes, at least as like a like a filmmaker in like the fancy traditional sense, you feel like you can only put your stuff on Vimeo, and like there's this whole thing about like, well, releasing it at certain times because you want to premiere at like this festival, and then like later you want it to be like an Oscar contender, and all these like secret like old school rules that kind of don't really apply anymore for the most part, unless you're like honestly, don't worry about that kind of stuff unless you plan to premiere at Cannes and like win an Oscar. Like just release your film when you feel like it. No festival's there's like 2 festivals that will reject you if your film's online. And if you're not gonna submit to those, then like don't worry about like keeping your film for a certain amount of months like unreleased. And yeah, then definitely like don't just release it on Vimeo, release it on YouTube, release it on Newgrounds, like any other like platform that has like videos on it, because you'll just reach a larger audience. And it's always interesting to see like the different kinds of people in each community and how they respond to your work.
That's awesome. Reddit is also a pretty great place as well. I posted my reel when I was submitting to NYU or applying to NYU, and I actually ended up meeting this other filmmaker from Virginia, and we lived together for like 5 years. We met on Reddit. It was crazy. I'm actually going to his birthday party here tonight, like 10 years later. But yeah, our filmmakers, and like there's our documentaries, and a lot of really great. They're not as probably massive as Newgrounds. That's so awesome. What a cool niche community there. But Reddit certainly has like a lot of active members there.
And then shameless plug here, I'm actually developing an app right now that, because it's like, as filmmakers, we're all on these different platforms like Instagram, Vimeo, IMDb, Reddit, and it's because we don't have a platform that's necessarily like exactly for us that has, I think, the connectivity of Instagram and the social aspect and like the community, but then Vimeo has the layout that's for displaying videos. So actually developing an app right now called Real Folio that will be kind of like Instagram in the sense that you can post your work and add connections and things like that, but it's more tailored towards displaying video content. And you can also tag crew members and like upload your work to channels like Vimeo and also post about open crew positions.
Okay, remind us the name of this app. Say it again.
It's called Real Folio, REELFOLIO. So it's like real and portfolio. So hopefully later this year. I'll add you guys.
Great. Yay. Good work.
Thanks.
Anybody else want to add different places that maybe young people are not thinking about that have generated work or networking or relationships that maybe don't seem obvious?
TikTok? I mean, that one's an obvious one, but yes, everyone's on TikTok.
I think there's a lot of cool channels too, like Director's Notes and Boom.tv and things like that, where a lot of industry people, as well as just people who just like to watch films, will come and see your work. So it's cool to submit to those. And it's not as expensive as submitting to festivals. So a good way to get eyes on whatever you're up to.
So to young people, how much time do you spend on these platforms and creating, you know, your website? Like, what's a realistic amount of time that you, in a week, let's say, the percentage of your time do you spend on this like curation and posting and that networking?
I would say for me, probably like a couple hours tops. But I also, I like to be really organized, and I don't like to spend like a whole lot of time doing busy work. So what I usually do is every time I make like new work that I want to post somewhere, I just update that on my website so that I don't have to do it in like big chunks of like 20 pieces and like write out all this new stuff and then like edit layouts. So I just kind of do it like in really small chunks, bit by bit. And then that way it's less of a hassle than doing it like once a month in like a big day.
Yeah, I feel like the nice thing about a website is like once you sit down and actually like design the whole thing, it's like really easy to just kind of like update stuff every once in a while. Like I think I'll like update my website like once a month. I don't have a lot of work that I feel like needs to go on my website. Just because like right now, like my current job is like, it's like much longer form, and it's like, yeah, it's like a different thing. So like, it's not like personal work. I wouldn't put it up there.
I spend very little time these days posting anything. I've just kind of taken a break from social media, from Instagram in general. It's funny, and I'm curious to get the room's kind of take on this, but I did this project a few years back called the 100-Day Project that my friend Elle started. And basically you have to make a piece of art every single day and post it online. And I made it to about 75. And it was a nerve-wracking kind of hellish experience that it was awesome because it pushed me, but it also, for those 75 days, I was like waking up stressing out about like what I was going to post. And I ended up like, you know, going, gravitating towards mediums that I knew that I would be like good at, whether it was like sketching or collage or something, and then not taking as many risks. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make for me and not post anything for like years. And then when I have stuff that like I feel good about, then I'm gonna put it out into the world. So I haven't posted on Instagram like at all in the past 3 years, or Vimeo, with the exception of a few projects. And it's been really amazing, but also a little bit like crazy, where I almost feel like I'm in this insular. I send it to friends and things, like little things that I'm working on, little songs and music videos and stuff. But it's a totally different way of navigating the world by not sharing. So I'm just curious about what your guys' experiences have been. I guess being authentic to oneself when posting online and trying to make the work for you, because sometimes I think in our current social media world, it's very easy to get wrapped up in everybody else's dreams and what their idea of success is. And that's why I needed to get off and stop posting, because I knew that I needed to like cut it out for a little bit and then return back to it after a few years.
I'm gonna try to attempt to answer your question. Like, I got my Instagram actually only a year ago, and I also did it for work. And I usually don't like to post for anything, but I think there needs to be kind of a separation between like your kind of art work, like things that you do for yourself, and then things that needs to be, and then the work networking persona. So I think, so that's when I had started to have like the courage to start posting stuff. It just but it's more matter of fact, like that whatever feedback that it gets, it has no effect on who I am, how I work. I feel like if we're posting to make ourselves feel better, or to affect us in any sense of way, I feel like that's a little bit more difficult to navigate. I don't know how it's like for other people in this room, because I think I probably have the hardest time with social media and my relationship with it. I just feel like it's such a complicated relationship. But I do realize kind of the hard values of how we work nowadays. And just because I'm not a cinematographer or an animator, and then I'm just a writer director, so like I do have a level of kind of a separation from that I feel a little bit comfortable. But I do post when the film is going somewhere. Like before, I couldn't even do that. Like, but I started to realize, okay, it has nothing. It has nothing to say with you as a person, but it's just the work is there. And I don't know if that will help like people who are watching this, if you're also suffering from like the same kind of anxiety that I do. I think it's really helpful for me to kind of realize that there is a division of kind of persona. Work is work, and you are you, and it doesn't need to be a complete, like somehow an integral like entity that that you're posting about your work, and that means you're super proud of it, or like the work defines who you are. It's just the work goes there, and that's it. And I find that kind of helpful to kind of navigate these social sites and these online kind of networking platforms. Yeah, but I'm sure that other people are gonna have different experience with it. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear.
Yeah. Jump in to speak to how do you navigate that distinction between self and work.
Yeah, well, I can talk about it a little bit, because I think it also just depends on your relationship to social media as well. Like I'm the kind of person that doesn't post any pictures or like the general stuff people will post on social media. I'm not posting things like hanging out with friends and like pictures of the beach and like me doing that kind of thing. I think it's partly also because I'm not like a big like take pictures of myself person. Maybe it's because I'm a filmmaker and I like to take the pictures or something. But I only really have ever used social media like to like put art up. So my Instagram is more, it's like semi-professional, but not, because it's kind of like a personal account, which is a little different than if you have like a separate account that's just for a film that you made and you're just posting there like this such and such festival is where I'm going to be like with my film, won this award, here's a trailer, which is like a little bit, it just, you can kind of post stuff on there and then not worry about it and have that just as like a, just for your film. But I don't know, I don't like doing that kind of stuff so much because it just kind of feels vacant to me. I like doing a mix of like some like stuff that's like, oh, I worked on this project or my film's going here, and then like here's a doodle that I did in my spare time, and it makes it feel like a little bit less daunting maybe for me. Like I don't feel like it has to be like all curated in this like really specific way. And I mean, it's hard too because you gotta get sucked into the whole thing with like algorithms and like how much engagement are you getting and like what are people liking more. So I kind of like try not to look too much at that stuff. I just post things and then have fun with it. Because I don't know, like I definitely hate, like I have posted like maybe one picture of myself if it's like a special occasion, and then that always gets like way more likes than any of my art, which always pisses me off because I'm like, the whole point of this account is just art, but the one picture of me, that's the one that people like the most. But I don't know, I think taking breaks from social media is definitely helpful. Like try not to just like look, see like who's liking what, like at what time, and all those like notifications. I try to turn those off so I don't look at them that often, but it can be super stressful. I try to make it like as relaxed as I can.
That's great. That's really great feedback.
I've found the algorithm recently has been really screwing certain creatives over. I have a few friends with like pretty massive followings on Instagram that'll post some of their work and it will barely get any traffic. And some of them are even consistent posters. I know that even on TikTok, like I read this article about people that are massive on TikTok and have these huge followings, that if you're not consistently posting, your engagement and your traffic will go down significantly. So it's like always looming over your head. So sometimes it's really, I guess it doesn't make any sense to judge the feedback that you're getting on social media platforms at all. I guess you could just take it with a grain of salt because only so many of your followers are seeing it, which is incredibly frustrating, but it's just the way that things are right now.
Great feedback. We do have, I think, some time for questions. Is someone on here to help us, or if you want to type in your questions, maybe we can see. Let's see. I'm trying to apply to Interlochen, but I don't know what to put in my portfolio. Any advice? Well, from an admissions standpoint, only put in there what they're asking. So sometimes we can go overboard with our application and put more in there than is being asked, and that doesn't necessarily help you. So I would say less is more, but let it be exactly what they're asking for, and also something that really speaks to your abilities and something that you're really proud of. As opposed to sometimes they'll offer opportunities for supplemental, and you think maybe that will help, not necessarily. So just make sure that you're following exactly what they're asking for. Let's see. Is college an important element for marketing as a filmmaker? Are there other ways around it? I'll speak just from an AFI standpoint. You do meet a lot of your fellow collaborators in film school, but it's certainly not the only way to go. And I'll be the first to say that. I don't think film school is necessarily the end-all be-all for making it in this career. But what it does give you is a space to not only really network, but develop yourself as an artist and develop your voice. that sometimes is a little bit hard to do when you're working on other people's projects. It's just kind of that time frame to be able to say, who am I as an artist? What do I want to bring to this? And really kind of focus on those skills for that time frame. But it's certainly not the only way. Does anybody else want to jump in and speak to, film school, whether it worked for them or not?
I had a quick thought on that. I went to NYU for a year, and I ended up dropping out of film school. Sorry, there's motorcycles here. And because I was working, I was doing commercials, and I was hopping outside of classes to hop on these agency calls and stuff. And it was like, can't be spending all this money going to NYU classes if I'm, building this career. And so I decided to take a break from school, and I never went back. And, it ended up working out. I signed with a production company, and I've made a lot of work that I like. But if I were to do it again, I probably would have transferred to art school, to Pratt or RISD or something like that. Because college, it's tricky to justify the cost that's at right now. But I think more importantly than college, it's just important to have a time that you're just focusing on making stuff for you. The real world and the jobs and rent and bills will be waiting for you on the other side of graduation. And that's something that I jumped into almost immediately. And I learned pretty quickly that in advertising, it's not your project. You're not paying for it. And so you can't just take clients' money like I tried to and just make my art, because they get pissed off and then they don't hire you again. And then you have no repeat clients. But no, yeah. So I'd say like film school certainly has its pluses and its minuses. But most importantly to me, I think it's pivotal to be able to make work for you and to experiment and then meet people that are like-minded, whether it's in film or any kind of real art sector.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think like it's really important or I guess like to address like the first part of the question, like for marketing as a filmmaker, like doesn't matter at all. Like no one really cares. It's like nice for like getting connections and like getting people to like hire you, which then that is important. But I would say like at the end of the day, like be really honest with yourself about like what exactly it is you want to get out of a film school education. Because like some people do want to have like a more hands-on approach or kind of like really just like focus on just being in this very artistic environment. Whereas like other people like having just like the college experience, like being very well-rounded is also very important. So like I went to USC, made it through all 4 years of undergrad. I feel like I really enjoyed it because I got to kind of like explore a lot, both like within filmmaking and just sort of like other fields that I never thought I would. And it's also just kind of like really important, again, to like look at what college you are looking at, whether that's like an art school, like more conservatory, or kind of, yeah, like a larger institution. And I think like for me, because I have like a lot of interest and I'm like really interested in especially like what USC had to offer, which like they have like obviously like a really great film program, but also like their like game design, like animation, all that stuff is also very, they're doing some like really cool stuff. So like definitely just do your research.
How much is a domain normally? What do you guys pay?
I technically don't pay for a domain name. Like what I did is because I need to use the Adobe Creative Suite anyway for work. I just have an Adobe portfolio site because I was like, I might as well just I'm paying for the whole thing. So that way I don't have to pay separately for like Squarespace. And it's been fine. Like honestly, with domain names, people aren't really like typing in full like websites anymore. People go through links. So it's really not that much of a hassle to have like a .wix site or something. Like if you really don't want to pay extra money to have just your name on the website, it hasn't deterred me from getting anything or like getting traffic. At least that's my opinion. I don't think it's that important to pay for like it to not say Squarespace or something.
It's $20, I think. I just checked my email because I use Squarespace, and I did pay for a domain. I think it says $20 to renew, for a year, I think that should be okay.
Any advice that's specific for journalists in making documentaries?
Well, that's awesome that you want to get into documentaries. I feel like I just recently finished shooting my first doc, so maybe I'm not like the most experienced person to answer this, but I feel like I learned a lot through this. And pre-interviews are so important for your documentary. Going into it, I thought that maybe it would be like easier than shooting a narrative because you just like meet this interesting person and like see what their story is, but it takes so much more preparation and like making sure that your subject feels comfortable and like having pre-interviews so you kind of have an idea of what you want the story to be and you're not just going in blind and like shooting a bunch of random B-rolls beforehand. And then also just respecting your person's story. Like I went into my documentary with an idea of what I wanted it to be about, and he revealed this like other, I think like way more interesting but like darker part of the story that I ended up just not including because I feel like it was kind of like violating a confidence that we had at the end of the process. So it's very challenging, but meet cool people and prep a lot.
There's also a really great collective called the Video Consortium that they have different screenings in New York and San Francisco and all around the country. They'll have different filmmakers that will screen their films and a ton of doc filmmakers that show up. I'm pretty sure you could sign up for their newsletter on their website. That's the Video Consortium. And I started going to those. I haven't been to a screening in a while, but they had them in the city. And it's just an awesome place to meet other doc filmmakers and then see their work on a consistent basis.
Does anyone have advice for how to find your place in the position that fits you in the industry?
I would say just really like go out there and like at the very beginning kind of like just try everything because like you never know like where stuff might lead. Kind of like going back to USC, like one of the things they really want to make sure is that like you try every position at least once. Because like sometimes you go in and you like may not even like know like what that position is. Like you're like, what's a script supervisor? Like I don't know. And so kind of just like keeping an open mind and seeing like what you enjoy. And it's okay if you like don't like everything because like filmmaking is so collaborative, but just really kind of exposing yourself to what's out there.
I also think it's important to note too that even let's say you go to school and you really like directing or like art direction and stuff like that, like you're not gonna get like the top gig like directing art director kind of jobs or like a full producer as your first job unless you're some sort of like savant that Netflix gives you a show or something like that. So you're going to at some point have at least one job that's boring or working on either a project that you're not that interested in or in a position you're not that interested in, and it's okay to not like it, and then sort of switch tracks or just keep going up the ladder because there's always going to be boring aspects of work, and it's hard, especially if you're an artist, to sort of separate like what I like to do is my hobby and like my own personal stuff versus like this is what I'm doing for money. So don't feel dejected if you're at the job that you think is your dream job and it's not necessarily living up to that expectation.
There's also something really beautiful about keeping those two things separate. Like for many years, I tried to make commercials that were like branded spots that didn't feel like ads. And I just really killed myself over like trying to make these things feel like art. And at the end of the day, it just wasn't my project, and I had to respect that. And so now I just keep them in two completely separate boxes where I have like my work hat that I put on, where it's all about like making the client happy. And then I have my own personal projects that nobody can screw with, that I have the final say on, that I'm funding myself. And so it just kind of protects that world. That being said, though, I will say that with directing, the entry-level position is directing. Like I found that by faking it a little bit in the beginning. It helped me get into directing spots from the get-go. But I also think at the same time, there's all this pressure in the beginning of film school to be a director, and there's so many parts of like the film world that are exciting, whether it's costume design or cinematography or sound design. And I wouldn't be afraid to focus on the things that you actually get excited about. Like where does time disappear for you? Like I always thought that I wanted to write, and I hate writing. And I couldn't get that through my head for so long until I just said, you know what? I'm not going to write. I'm just going to like do docs, work with writers and all of that. And it was just such a relief to not have to work up to that, that dream anymore.